The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by any civilization in the known universe. It floated in the empty space between three ancient star systems, and its walls were made of crystal that had taken 10,000 years to grow. Inside this chamber, the leaders of 37 spacefaring species gathered to decide the fate of worlds. They had done this for millions of years. They had conquered planets, destroyed civilizations, and shaped the galaxy according to their wishes. Today, they would discuss a small blue world called Earth. High Arbiter Xyrax of the Vendorian Empire rose from his seat. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, with gray skin that looked like stone, and 4 eyes that glowed with a soft yellow light. His people had ruled over 200 star systems for longer than most species had existed. "Fellow council members," Xyrax said, his voice deep and commanding, "we have a problem. The primitive species on the 3rd planet of the Sol system has begun to expand beyond their world. They call themselves humans. They have built structures on their moon and sent machines to their neighboring planets. If we do not act now, they will become a threat to our way of life." Ambassador Krell of the Thaxian Collective nodded his large insectoid head. His species looked like giant mantises, with sharp claws and compound eyes that saw in every direction at once. Our scouts have been watching them for many cycles. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, but it advances at a speed we have never seen before. 100 of their years ago, they could barely fly through their own atmosphere. Now they reach for the stars. Then we must crush them before they reach too far, said Councillor Morath of the Draven Syndicate. His species was reptilian, with scales that shifted color based on their emotions. Right now, his scales were a deep red, the color of aggression. "Send a fleet. Subjugate them. Add their world to our territories." Elder Councillor Prax of the Silthari Dominion remained silent. His species was the oldest in the council, having achieved space travel when most other races were still learning to use tools. He had seen many civilizations rise and fall. Something about this discussion troubled him, but he kept his thoughts to himself for now. High Arbiter Xyrax raised his hand for silence. "It is decided then. I will personally authorize a fleet from the Vendorian Empire to bring the humans under our control. They will be given a choice: surrender and serve, or be destroyed. This is the way it has always been. This is the way it will always be." The council voted. 36 representatives agreed. Only Elder Prax abstained. His ancient eyes filled with something the others did not understand. It might have been worry, it might have been curiosity, or it might have been the faintest hint of amusement. Far across the galaxy, on the small blue world called Earth, Commander Danny Patterson stood on the observation deck of the space station Liberty. The station orbited Earth at a height of 400 kilometers, and from here, Danny could see the entire curve of his home planet. The blue of the oceans, the green and brown of the continents, the white swirls of clouds that moved slowly across the surface. It was beautiful. It was home. And Danny had sworn to protect it with his life. He was 42 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He had served in 3 wars on Earth before being selected for the space program, and he carried the scars of those conflicts both on his body and in his mind. But when he looked at Earth, all of that faded away. All that mattered was keeping that blue marble safe. Lieutenant Katie Morgan approached him with a tablet in her hands. She was younger than Danny, in her early 30s, with red hair tied back in a practical ponytail and a sharp mind that had earned her a position as second in command of the station. Her face was serious, which was unusual. Katie usually had a smile ready for any situation. "Sir, we have a problem," she said. "Our long-range sensors are picking up something strange at the edge of the solar system. Multiple contacts, moving in formation. They are traveling faster than anything we have ever recorded." Danny took the tablet and studied the readings. His heart began to beat faster, but his face remained calm. He had learned long ago to never show fear in front of his crew. "How many contacts?" "Over 200, sir, and they are heading directly toward Earth." Danny was silent for a long moment. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Scientists had debated the question for centuries. Some believed that life must exist somewhere out there among the billions of stars. Others argued that Earth was unique, a rare miracle in an empty cosmos. Now, it seemed, they were about to get their answer. "Contact Geneva," Danny said quietly. "Tell Director Henderson that we have visitors." In the city of Geneva, Switzerland, Director Laura Henderson received the message in her office at the United Nations Space Command headquarters. She was a woman in her 50s, with silver hair and a face that showed the weight of responsibility she carried. For 20 years, she had worked to unite the nations of Earth under a common goal: to reach for the stars and secure humanity's future among them. Now, it seemed, the stars were reaching back. She called an emergency meeting. Within 2 hours, the most powerful people on Earth were gathered in a secure chamber deep beneath the city. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists sat around a long table, their faces pale as they watched the sensor data on the main screen. "They will be here in 72 hours, Laura said. "We do not know who they are or what they want. But based on their approach, vector, and formation, our analysts believe this is not a peaceful visit." General Ben Hartley stood up. He was 60 years old, a veteran of countless battles, with a face like carved granite and eyes that had never shown fear. "Ma'am, I recommend we activate all planetary defense systems immediately. Every missile, every satellite, every weapon we have. If they come in peace, we lose nothing by being prepared. If they come for war, we need every second we can get." Laura nodded slowly. "Do it." As the orders went out across the planet, as soldiers rushed to their posts and missiles were armed in their silos, humanity prepared to face its greatest challenge. They did not know what was coming. They did not know if they could survive. But they knew one thing with absolute certainty: they would not go quietly. In a hidden base on the dark side of the moon, Commander Nathan Cole received his orders. He looked at the massive railgun batteries that his team had spent 30 years building in secret, weapons that no one on Earth knew existed except for a handful of people. He smiled grimly. "Well, boys and girls," he said to his crew, "looks like we finally get to see if these things work." The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson. Earth was not just another primitive world, waiting to be conquered. Earth was home to a species that had spent its entire existence fighting, surviving, and refusing to die. The humans were about to introduce themselves to the universe, and the universe was not ready. The Vendorian fleet emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare made real. 217 warships appeared in the darkness above Earth, each one larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. The smallest of them was the size of a football stadium. The largest, Admiral Vorax's flagship, called the Eternal Dominion, was nearly 3 kilometers long. It blocked out the stars as it moved into position, a mountain of metal and weapons designed to crush any resistance. Admiral Vorax stood on the bridge of his mighty ship, looking down at the blue planet below. He had conquered 12 worlds in his career. He had destroyed civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. This small planet with its primitive inhabitants would be the easiest victory of his life. He was certain of this. "Open a communication channel to the planet," he ordered. "Let us give them their one chance to surrender." His communications officer obeyed, and within moments, Vorax's image was being broadcast to every screen on Earth. Billions of humans saw the alien for the first time. They saw his 4 yellow eyes, his gray stone-like skin, and the cold confidence on his face. "Primitive beings of Earth," Vorax announced. "I am Admiral Vorax of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. Your species has been judged a potential threat to the stability of the galaxy. You have 2 choices. Surrender immediately, dismantle all your spacecraft, and submit to permanent oversight by the Council, or refuse and watch your world be reduced to ash. You have 1 hour to decide." The transmission ended. Across the planet, there was silence. In homes and offices, in military bases, and government buildings, people stared at their screens in shock. Some cried, some prayed, but many, very many, felt something else rising in their chests. It was not fear. It was anger. In the Situation Room beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Amy Richardson sat at the head of a long table surrounded by her advisors. She was 53 years old, a former pilot who had risen through the ranks of government through sheer determination and intelligence. She had faced many crises in her career, but nothing like this. "What are our options?" she asked. General Ben Hartley stepped forward. His old face was calm, almost peaceful. "Ma'am, we have been preparing for this possibility for a very long time. Officially, it was called a theoretical exercise. Unofficially, every major nation on Earth has been building weapons and defenses for exactly this scenario. Explain. The railgun batteries on the moon, the EMP warheads in our missile silos, the orbital defense platforms disguised as research stations. We have spent decades getting ready for an enemy from the stars. We never knew if that enemy would come, but we prepared anyway." President Richardson was quiet for a moment. Then, she looked around the table at the faces of her advisors, at the generals and scientists and leaders who had dedicated their lives to protecting their world. "Can we win?" "Honestly, ma'am, I do not know. They have superior technology and numbers. But we have something they do not expect. We have the will to fight. And we have surprises." "Actor," the president nodded slowly. "Then we fight. Send no response to their ultimatum. Let our weapons be our answer." Admiral Vorax waited patiently for 1 hour. When no surrender came, he smiled. He had hoped the humans would resist. It had been too long since he had enjoyed a good battle. "They choose destruction," he said to his officers. "Deploy the subjugation force. 3 cruisers should be enough to break their spirit. Target their largest cities. Show them what happens to those who defy the Council." 3 massive cruisers broke away from the fleet and began descending toward North America. Their weapons powered up with a deep humming sound, blue light gathering at their forward cannons. In minutes, they would be in range. In minutes, millions of humans would die. The first cruiser exploded. There was no warning. One moment it was descending toward Earth, invincible and unstoppable. The next moment it was a ball of fire and twisted metal, torn apart by a force that Admiral Vorax could not understand. "Report!" he screamed. "What happened?" His tactical officer stared at his screen in disbelief. "Unknown weapons fire, Admiral. The origin point is their lunar surface. Some kind of kinetic projectile traveling at extreme velocity. We did not even see it coming." On the dark side of the moon, Commander Nathan Cole watched the explosion through his observation window. The railgun batteries had worked perfectly. 30 years of secret construction, 30 years of hiding from the rest of the world, and now they had their first kill. "Reload all batteries," he ordered. "Target the next cruiser." The second cruiser tried to take evasive action, but the railgun projectiles traveled too fast. It was hit 3 times in quick succession, each impact tearing through its hull like paper. The ship broke apart and fell toward Earth, a burning meteor that would crash harmlessly into the Pacific Ocean. The third cruiser turned and fled back toward the main fleet, its captain screaming for help. Admiral Vorax stared at the tactical display, his 4 eyes wide with shock. In less than 5 minutes, he had lost 2 capital ships to a species that was supposed to be primitive. This was impossible. This could not be happening. "All ships, raise shields to maximum," he commanded. "Begin scanning the lunar surface. Find those weapons and destroy them." But the humans were not finished. Across Earth, missile silos opened their doors. Submarines surfaced in every ocean. Aircraft took off from hidden bases. The entire planet was awakening. And it was angry. Lieutenant Commander Chris Martinez coordinated the defense from the space station Liberty. He watched his screens as thousands of missiles launched from Earth's surface, as fighter jets screamed into the sky, as every weapon humanity possessed was aimed at the alien fleet above. "All stations report ready," Katie Morgan announced. "Every nation on Earth is participating. Russians, Chinese, Americans, Europeans, everyone." Commander Danny Patterson nodded. "Today there are no nations. Today there is only Earth. Fire, everything." The first wave of missiles struck the Vendorian fleet. They were not nuclear warheads. They were something the aliens had never encountered before. Electromagnetic pulse weapons, designed to fry electronic systems. The missiles detonated in precise patterns, sending waves of energy through the alien ships. Dozens of Vendorian vessels went dark. Their lights flickered and died. Their engines stopped. Their weapons failed. They drifted helplessly in space, blind and paralyzed. And through the chaos, human pilots came screaming in their small fighter craft, armed with weapons that should have been useless against the alien technology. But the aliens were disabled. Their shields were down. Their point defense systems were offline. Lieutenant Ashley Palmer flew her modified fighter straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Her wingman, Jake Morris, stayed close behind her. They were both young, both scared, and both absolutely determined to make the invaders pay. "Fox 3, Ashley called out as she launched her missile. It struck a disabled destroyer and detonated inside its reactor core. The ship exploded in a flash of light that was visible from Earth's surface. "Splash 1, Jake confirmed. "Nice shot, Palmer. They came to our home," Ashley replied, her voice cold and steady. "They threatened our families. Now, they learn what that means." Admiral Vorax watched the battle unfold in horror. His mighty fleet was being torn apart by creatures he had dismissed as primitives. He had made a terrible mistake, and he was only beginning to understand how terrible it truly was. The battle had been raging for 12 hours, and the Galactic Council watched every moment of it from their crystal chamber far across the galaxy. Their long-range sensors showed them everything in perfect detail. They saw the Vendorian fleet, once the most feared armada in the known universe, being systematically torn apart by a species they had considered primitive and weak. "This cannot be happening," High Arbiter Zyrax whispered. His gray face had turned pale. His 4 eyes were fixed on the holographic display that showed ship after ship being destroyed. "Admiral Vorax commands our finest fleet. How are they losing to creatures who discovered space travel less than a century ago?" Counselor Morath of the Draven Syndicate was no longer showing red scales of aggression. His scales had turned white, the color of fear. "Perhaps we should send reinforcements. Another fleet could turn the tide. And lose that fleet as well?" Ambassador Krell asked, his insectoid voice clicking with anxiety. "Look at what they are doing. They are not fighting like any species we have ever encountered. They are not trying to disable or capture. They are trying to kill. Every single attack is designed for maximum destruction." Elder Counselor Prax finally spoke. His ancient voice was calm, almost amused. "Did none of you research these humans before voting to invade their world?" The other council members turned to look at him. "I did," Prax continued. "I studied their history, their culture, their biology, and I abstained from the vote because I knew this would happen." "Then tell us," Zyrax demanded. "What are they? How can primitives fight like this?" Prax stood slowly and walked to the center of the chamber. He waved his hand, and the holographic display changed. Instead of the battle, it now showed images of Earth. Beautiful blue oceans, green forests, snow-capped mountains. It looked peaceful. "Their planet is what we call a death world," Prax said. "The gravity is higher than galactic average. The atmosphere contains a gas called oxygen, which is highly corrosive. Their world is covered in predators, parasites, and diseases that would kill any of us within days. The temperature varies by over 100 degrees, depending on location and season. Earthquakes destroy their cities. Hurricanes flatten their coastal regions. Volcanoes bury entire civilizations in ash. He paused to let this sink in, and yet they survived. They did not just survive. They conquered their world. They became the apex predators of a planet that was trying to kill them from the moment they were born. Every human alive today is the descendant of countless generations who fought, struggled, and refused to die. The display changed again, showing images from human history. Ancient warriors with swords and spears. Medieval armies clashing on bloody battlefields. Soldiers in trenches, surrounded by mud and death. Tanks rolling across burning cities. Mushroom clouds rising over destroyed landscapes. They have been at war with each other for their entire existence, Prax said. They have perfected the art of killing. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet many times over. And through all of this, they never stopped fighting. They never surrendered. They never gave up. Any quarter. They never gave up. They never stride. They're nummening Laskari. They're nummening Laskari. They never bid. They're never bid. There once upon maybe. There once to bid explain. The council members watched in silence as the images continued. Humans, building and destroying. Creating and killing. Loving and hating. They were a species of contradictions, capable of both great beauty and terrible violence. When you sent a fleet to threaten their world, Prax concluded, you did not frighten them. You united them. Every human on that planet now has one single purpose: to make you regret ever coming to their system. On Earth, the ground war was proving just as brutal as the space battle. Despite their losses in orbit, the Vendorians had managed to land several ground forces before their transports were destroyed. In the ruins of Chicago, a battalion of alien soldiers had established a beachhead, believing their superior technology would allow them to hold the position until reinforcements arrived. They were wrong. Sergeant Tyler Grant led a squad of 12 soldiers through the rubble of what had once been a shopping district. The buildings were destroyed. Smoke rising from 100 fires. The streets filled with broken concrete and shattered glass. It was hell on Earth. And Tyler had been through hell before. Contact ahead, Private Megan Torres whispered. She was young, only 22, but she had the eyes of someone much older. War aged people quickly. 12 hostiles, maybe 15. They are setting up some kind of defensive position. Tyler studied the enemy through his binoculars. The Vendorians were tall, easily 7 feet, with armored exoskeletons that regular bullets barely scratched. Their weapons fired bolts of blue plasma that could vaporize a human in a single shot. On paper, they were unbeatable. But Tyler and his squad were not fighting on paper. Flanking maneuver. He ordered quietly. Torres, take Johnson and Kim through the sewers. Come up behind them. Davis, you and Miller set up on that rooftop with the heavy rifles. Everyone else, with me. We hit them from 3 sides at once. The squad moved like shadows through the destroyed city. They had trained for urban warfare, their entire careers. They knew how to use rubble for cover, how to move without making sound, how to turn a battlefield into a death trap for their enemies. The attack came without warning. Davis opened fire from the rooftop with an anti-material rifle, each shot punching through Vendorian armor like it was made of paper. The aliens scattered, trying to find cover, but there was no cover from 3 directions. Torres and her team emerged from a sewer grate behind the enemy position, throwing grenades that exploded with devastating force. Tyler led the frontal assault, his squad pouring fire into the confused aliens. In less than 2 minutes, it was over. 12 Vendorians lay dead in the street. Tyler's squad had not lost a single soldier. Push forward, Tyler ordered. There are more of them ahead, and they are going to learn the same lesson these ones did. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. In Moscow, Russian special forces ambushed a Vendorian patrol, killing 30 aliens without taking a single casualty. In Beijing, Chinese soldiers used tunnel networks built during the Cold War to surround and destroy an enemy company. In Tokyo, in London, in Cairo, in Sao Paulo, Humanity fought back with everything they had. The aliens had expected easy prey. They found warriors. Admiral Vorax received the casualty reports with growing despair. His ground forces were being slaughtered. His fleet was crippled. Over 100 ships had been destroyed, or disabled, in less than 18 hours, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. "Admiral," his tactical officer said, voice trembling, "we are detecting a large vessel emerging from the dark side of their moon. It matches no profile in our database, but our sensors indicate heavy weapons signatures." Vorax looked at the image on his screen. The vessel was smaller than his flagship, but it was clearly designed for one purpose: war. It was the carrier Independence, humanity's first true warship, built in secret at the lunar shipyards over the past decade. Commander Danny Patterson stood on the bridge of the Independence, looking at the scattered remnants of the once mighty Vendorian fleet. Most of their ships were disabled or fleeing. The invasion had failed. "Open a channel to the enemy flagship," Danny ordered. Admiral Vorax's face appeared on the screen moments later. He looked tired. He looked defeated. He looked afraid. "Commander of the human forces," Vorax said slowly, "I wish to discuss terms." Danny leaned forward, his eyes cold and hard. "You came to our home. You threatened to kill everyone we love. You thought we would be easy to conquer." He paused. "There are no terms. Leave our system and never come back." The Vendorian admiral stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "We will go," he said quietly. "But you should know that the Galactic Council will not forget this defeat. There are powers in this galaxy far greater than my fleet." Danny smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Good. Let them come. We will be waiting." The remnants of the Vendorian fleet limped away from Earth like wounded animals fleeing a predator. Of the 217 ships that had arrived with such confidence, only 58 remained operational. The rest were either destroyed, drifting dead in space, or captured by human boarding parties who had shown no mercy to those who resisted. Admiral Vorax sat alone in his quarters aboard the damaged Eternal Dominion. His flagship had survived, barely, but it would need months of repairs before it could fight again. He stared at the wall, his 4 eyes empty of all emotion. He had been the most feared admiral in the Vendorian Empire. He had never lost a battle. Now he would return home in disgrace, the commander who had been defeated by primitives. But worse than the defeat was the message he had to deliver. The humans had given him their words, and he knew the Galactic Council needed to hear them. They needed to understand what they had awakened. Back on Earth, the celebration was muted. Yes, they had won. Yes, they had driven back the invaders. But the cost had been high. Thousands of soldiers had died in the ground battles. Several cities had been damaged by orbital bombardment before the fleet's weapons were silenced. Families mourned their lost loved ones, even as they celebrated their survival. President Amy Richardson addressed the planet from the steps of a rebuilt government building in Washington. Behind her stood leaders from every nation on Earth, united as they had never been before. "Today we proved something important," she said to the cameras, her voice calm but strong. "We proved that humanity will not be conquered. We proved that when we stand together, nothing in this universe can break us. We lost friends and family in this battle. We will honor their memory by building a future they would be proud of. A future where Earth is safe. A future where our children can look up at the stars without fear." The crowd cheered. Across the planet, billions of people watched and felt hope for the first time since the alien ships had appeared in their skies. But the work was not finished. Everyone knew that. The aliens would be back. Maybe not the Vendorians, but others. The galaxy had noticed Earth, and Earth needed to be ready. In the weeks that followed, humanity began the largest military buildup in its history. Every nation contributed resources. Every factory that could be converted to military production was converted. New shipyards were built on the moon and in orbit around Earth. The railgun batteries that had saved them were expanded and improved. Research into alien technology captured from the battle accelerated at incredible speed. Commander Nathan Cole led the effort at the lunar base Armstrong. His teams worked around the clock, studying the wreckage of Vendorian ships, learning their secrets, and finding ways to use that knowledge. Their shields are based on energy fields we can disrupt with the right frequency, he explained to a group of scientists and military officers. Their faster-than-light drives use principles we were already theorizing about. Give us 5 years, and we will have ships that can match anything they throw at us. Give us 10 years, and we will have ships that can go to them. General Ben Hartley nodded slowly. Good. But we need more than ships. We need soldiers who can fight them on the ground. We need weapons that can penetrate their armor more reliably. We need to become the most dangerous species in this galaxy. We already are, said a quiet voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to see Sergeant Tyler Grant standing in the doorway. He had been promoted after the Battle of Chicago, decorated for bravery, and offered a comfortable desk job. He had refused. He wanted to stay in the field, training the next generation of soldiers. They had every advantage, Tyler continued, walking into the room. Better technology, better armor, better weapons, and we still beat them. You know why? Because they have never had to fight for their survival. They conquered weak species who surrendered at the first sign of trouble. They have no idea what it means to face an enemy who would rather die than give up. He looked around at the assembled leaders. We do not need to become dangerous. We already are dangerous. We just need to make sure the rest of the galaxy understands that. Far across the stars, Admiral Vorax finally reached the Galactic Council chamber. He had requested permission to address the full council, and it had been granted. Every representative wanted to hear what had happened. They wanted to understand how such a disaster had occurred. Vorax stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the leaders of 37 civilizations. They looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. He was a failure. He was a disgrace. But he had information they needed. Speak, High Arbiter Zyrax commanded. His voice was cold. Tell us what happened. Vorax took a deep breath. I will tell you. But first, you need to understand something. The humans gave me a message to deliver. They wanted me to share it with the entire council. I believe you should hear it. He activated a recording device, and Commander Danny Patterson's voice filled the chamber. To the Galactic Council. You sent a fleet to conquer our world. That fleet has been destroyed. The survivors are returning to you now, and they will tell you what happened. But I want to make something very clear. We did not ask for this war. We were happy to live in peace on our world, exploring our solar system, building our civilization. You chose to threaten us. You chose to attack us, and now you will live with the consequences. The recording continued. Earth is not for conquest. Humanity will not be subjugated. If you send another fleet, we will destroy it just like we destroyed this one. And if you keep sending fleets, eventually, we will build ships of our own. We will come to your worlds. We will find every species that voted to attack us, and we will make them regret that decision. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We do not want war with the galaxy. We want peace. We want trade. We want to learn from you and share what we have learned. But if you force us to fight, we will fight. And we will win. Because that is what humans do. We survive. We adapt. We overcome. It is in our blood. It is in our history. It is who we are. There was a pause in the recording. You have a choice now. You can treat us as enemies and face the consequences. Or you can treat us as equals and discover that we can be the best friends you have ever had. But understand this. Whatever you choose, we will be ready. We will always be ready. Humanity is awake now, and we are never going to sleep again. The recording ended. The chamber was silent. Elder Counselor Prax rose slowly from his seat. His ancient face showed something that might have been a smile. I believe, he said softly, that the Council owes the humans an apology, and perhaps an invitation. High Arbiter Xyrax stared at him in disbelief. An invitation? After they destroyed our fleet? They destroyed a fleet that was sent to enslave them without provocation. They defended their home. Any species in this chamber would have done the same, if they had the courage. Prax looked around at his fellow council members. The humans have offered us two paths: war or peace. I suggest we choose wisely. The debate that followed would last for many days, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The galaxy had seen what humans could do when threatened. No one wanted to see what they could do when truly angry. And on Earth, humanity continued to prepare. They built ships, they trained soldiers, they studied alien technology and made it their own. They were not afraid anymore. They were ready. 1 year had passed since the invasion. Earth had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The old divisions between nations had not disappeared completely, but they had faded into the background. There was still America and Russia and China and all the other countries. But now, there was something bigger too. There was Earth. There was humanity. There was a shared identity that transcended borders and languages and old conflicts. The United Earth Defense Force had grown from a dream into a reality. 12 new warships patrolled the solar system, each one more powerful than anything the Vendorians had brought to the battle. The lunar base Armstrong had expanded into a full military complex, with weapons capable of defending Earth from any threat. And in the asteroid belt, construction had begun on humanity's first interstellar vessel. A ship that would carry humans to distant stars. But the biggest change was not military. It was diplomatic. Ambassador Eric Shaw stood in the shuttle bay of the space station Liberty, adjusting his formal suit and trying to calm his nerves. He was 45 years old, a former professor of interstellar relations at a university that had not even existed before the invasion. Now he was about to become the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. Nervous? Commander Danny Patterson asked, standing beside him. Terrified, Eric admitted. A year ago, I was teaching theoretical classes about how humanity might someday contact alien life. Now I am about to sit in a room with 37 different species and represent our entire planet. Danny smiled. You will do fine. Just remember who you are. Remember who we are. We are humans. We do not bow. We do not beg. We negotiate from strength, and we keep our word. That is all they need to know about us. The shuttle launched from Liberty and climbed toward the alien transport ship waiting in orbit. Eric watched Earth shrink in the window, that beautiful blue marble that so many had died to protect. He would not let them down. The journey to the Galactic Council chamber took 3 days. The alien ship used faster-than-light technology that human scientists were still trying to understand, crossing distances that would have taken conventional spacecraft centuries. Eric spent the time studying briefing documents, memorizing the names and customs of each species he would meet, preparing himself for the most important moment in human history. When the ship finally arrived at the council chamber, Eric felt his breath catch in his throat. The structure was enormous, a crystal palace floating in the void between stars. It was beautiful and terrifying, ancient and eternal. And soon, humanity would have a place inside it. The council chamber had been rearranged for this occasion. Where once the seats had been positioned in a hierarchy of power, with the oldest and strongest species at the top, now they formed a circle of equals. And in that circle was a new seat, one that had never existed before. A seat for humanity. Eric walked into the chamber alone. He felt the eyes of 37 species watching him, studying him, judging him. Some looked curious. Some looked respectful. A few still looked hostile. But none of them looked at him with contempt anymore. That was something. High Arbiter Xyrax rose from his seat. The Vendorian leader had aged visibly in the past year. The defeat of his fleet had cost him much of his political power, and there were rumors that he would be replaced soon. But for now, he still spoke for the council. The chair recognizes the human representative, Xyrax announced. His voice was formal, neutral, with none of the arrogance it had held a year ago. Eric walked to the center of the chamber and stood before the assembled leaders of the galaxy. He took a deep breath and began to speak. 1 year ago, your council sent a fleet to enslave my people. Today, I stand here not as a conqueror, but as a partner. He paused, letting the words sink in. Humanity does not seek revenge for what happened. We understand that fear drove your decision. You saw a young species reaching for the stars, and you were afraid of what we might become. That fear was understandable, but it was also wrong. He turned slowly, making eye contact with representatives from each species. We are not your enemies. We never were. All we ever wanted was a chance to explore, to learn, to grow. You saw that as a threat, but it does not have to be. Our curiosity, our drive, our determination, these qualities can be used for creation as easily as destruction. We want to learn from you. We want to share what we have learned. We want to build something greater than any of us could build alone. Elder Counselor Prax nodded approvingly from his seat. He had been humanity's strongest advocate in the council debates over the past year, arguing that the humans should be welcomed as allies, rather than feared as enemies. His ancient wisdom had helped sway many votes. What do you offer in return? Prax asked. What can humanity bring to the council? Eric smiled. Protection. Your civilizations are old and powerful, but you have grown comfortable. Your militaries are designed for intimidation, not true warfare. You have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. We have not. We offer you the one thing that humans have perfected over thousands of years of conflict. And what is that? Adaptability, resilience, and the absolute refusal to give up, no matter the odds. Eric's voice grew stronger. When your enemies threaten you, we will stand beside you. When your worlds are in danger, we will help you defend them. And when the darkness comes, as it always does, we will be the light that drives it back. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Ambassador Krell rose from his seat. The Thaxian representative walked forward and extended one of his clawed hands toward Eric in a gesture of greeting that humans had taught him. On behalf of the Thaxian collective, he said, I welcome humanity to the Galactic Council. One by one, other representatives rose and offered their own welcomes. Some were warm and genuine. Others were formal and cautious. But all of them acknowledged the same truth. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. In every city, on every continent, people celebrated. They cheered and cried and held each other close. They had survived the darkest moment in their history, and now they were part of something bigger than themselves. They were citizens of the galaxy. At the Armstrong lunar base, Commander Nathan Cole gathered his team for a brief ceremony. Among them stood a young cadet named Brittany Santos, whose mother had died in the Battle of Chicago defending Earth from the Vendorian ground forces. Brittany had joined the Defense Force on her 18th birthday, determined to honor her mother's sacrifice. Today is a good day, Nathan said to his people. We have peace. We have allies. We have a future among the stars. But we must never forget what brought us here. We must never forget the price that was paid. He looked at Brittany, and she met his gaze without flinching. Why do we serve? He asked. Brittany answered without hesitation. Because someone has to protect what matters. Nathan nodded. And what matters? Home, family, humanity, Earth. Never forget that. No matter how far we travel, no matter what wonders we discover out there among the stars, never forget where we come from. Never forget who we are. In the council chamber, Eric Shaw took his seat among the representatives of the galaxy. He was one voice among 38 now. But he knew that voice would be heard, because behind him stood 8 billion humans who had looked into the face of extinction and refused to blink. The galaxy had learned an important lesson in the past year. Do not threaten Earth. Do not underestimate humans. And above all, Do not mistake kindness for weakness. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same. Far out in the darkness between galaxies, ancient sensors detected the energy signatures of the battle that had taken place near Earth. In chambers that had been silent for millions of years, machinery began to stir. Eyes that had watched the rise and fall of countless civilizations turned their attention toward a small blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow star. Something old and powerful had noticed humanity. And it was curious. The story of Earth among the stars was just beginning.